And yes, we're doing some color correcting in Adobe Lightroom for your photography. Now stay tuned for the whole video because both of these images are going to be edited slightly differently, showing you some amazing techniques and a special little surprise that's going to help you guys out a ton when you're editing your raw images and trying to get some better white balance. Okay, so now that we're in Adobe Lightroom, let's go ahead and get started. First and foremost, if your Adobe Lightroom looks different than mine, don't worry. All I've done is hidden the top bar, the bottom bar, and the sidebar, so that way you guys have a bigger image to see, and it's also going to make it a little bit easier for me to edit these things as well. So what we're going to do here today is get a neutral color balance and get the proper white balance setting for an image. Maybe if you didn't shoot correctly, or if you were in a condition where you thought you had the right white balance, but then you get back to look at the image and it's a little bland like this one. So these are a couple of images that I shot on my and Megan's trip to Asheville last weekend. It was a really great time over there as always. We ate at our favorite noodle shop called The Noodle, and their food is absolutely phenomenal. So this image I took of our little table here when the food first came out. I don't know why, as a photographer, I really love taking pictures of my food. It's something I've always done. I don't know why. I mean, it's not the most glamorous thing in the world, but hey, I mean, this is going to make for a cool tutorial. So what we want to do first is check our white balance before we do anything else. And what I'm going to do is hit W on the keyboard. And what W is going to do is take this little white balance eyedropper and just pull it over here for me to use it. So really quickly, as I move this around the image, I want you to pay attention to these little numbers, the RGB numbers. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with this little green piece of pepper over here. You're going to notice that the red is 16, the green is 18, and the blue is 11. So this is not an area where you want to select white balance, but I want to show you this. So the reason the green is higher is obviously because it's a green vegetable. It's going to have less red and blue than it would green. So let's go on down to this carrot here real quick, and you can see a massive difference that the red is a 48, the green is a 29, but the blue is only 8.5. And the reason is because those are on opposite sides. They're, basically opposing colors to a degree. So what you're going to see here is because, there's not really any blues in orange. It's going to be more oranges and yellows and reds. So that's why you're seeing that dramatic color difference. But now let's move on to something white, say this napkin, or let's move over to this plate. So on this plate, what you're going to see is 84.1, 85, and 87. Now, because we know that white is a totally neutral target, those three numbers should be closer to the same. If anything, they should all be somewhere around 85. So let's go ahead and click on that area, and you can see what it's done to the image. It's actually warmed it up a little bit and, made it more neutral. So it's actually color corrected that image for us almost perfectly. And, if you ask me, I think the image looks phenomenal as it is. However, we need to do some exposure adjustments to really sell this image. So if you look up here at the histogram, you're going to see that there's way too much darkness, and I would almost say 3/4 of this image, at least over 50%, is darker. So what we're going to do is actually pull our exposure up to give us a healthier little histogram over here. So now you can see the difference in what we've done by pulling that exposure up. More can be seen, but our highlights are starting to lose some detail in some different areas. So all you got to do is pull that highlight slider back down to kind of even everything out a little bit. Maybe even pull your shadows up some, and then add in just a little bit more of your blacks where we kind of took some of that out. And there we go. That's a beautifully color corrected image from what we started from until now. So we've made the exposure a lot better, we've made the colors a lot better, and although it's still not the most attractive image in the world, it has made it look 10 times better just by doing a couple little things. All right, so now on to the next image. This image, I chose this one for a couple reasons, and that's because we don't have as many areas to select, and there's more neutral tones here to kind of mess with us a little bit. So there's, it's a lot more balanced as far as the exposure. The histogram looks a lot better than previously, and the color correction. How are we going to color correct this in a neutral setting? There's nothing totally white to click on around here. So if we grab our white balance tool here or click W on the keyboard, you can try going up to the clouds here, because you could see that, 95.5, 95.0, and 94.4, those are pretty closely related, but watch what happens when we click on this. Okay, so we clicked on a white cloud, but it made the image look really cyan. That's odd. Well, let's go back and look at the white balance again. And if you look at these little squares, you're going to notice some other tones in those little sections. And what's happening is it's kind of pulling from that. Like, I don't know if you guys can see it on your screen, but on my screen right now, I can see some pinks and even subtle hints of brown mixed in with those white notches. So how do we select white balance in a situation like this? Well, I mean, you could click on something like skin, but again, it's going to go back to that cyan color because it's going to kind of try to balance out that pink, and the opposite of, you know, those settings is going to be more of like a blue color. Think about your teal and orange. If you click on a skin tone, which is the more of the orange perspective, it's going to make it more blue to kind of compensate for that. So let's go ahead and hit Command Z, and that's going to put everything back to normal. What I want you to do is go over to where it says temperature, hold down the Shift key on your keyboard, double click. Lightroom is going to automatically go in and develop what it believes is the best white balance setting to make this image totally neutral. Let's go on through each of these sections and hold in Shift and double click on each one of these, and let's see how Lightroom will actually edit this image for us. So let's go ahead and look at a before and after here. That looks phenomenal. This image is color corrected, it is toned, it is well exposed. It looks amazing in comparison to the in-camera image that we started with. It is that simple to make these edits. So if you're ever in a situation, whereas this first image, you know, we had true white objects to click on with the eyedropper to get that neutral white balance. But if you're ever in a situation where you don't have anything to click on, you can always try to rely on Lightroom's capabilities, or, you know, you can try to eyeball it with the slider and kind of slide it to somewhere you feel comfortable with. But if you want that true neutral, Lightroom is so smart in its capabilities to find that for you. So I hope this video helped you guys out today. If it did, be sure to leave a thumbs up. If you're new to this channel, be sure to subscribe to stay tuned for the latest updates so you don't miss out on any little thing. And as always, be sure to create something new today.